Shirley with Spirit of Matter, and this is a very mercurial chart here with the ascendant 6 degrees Virgo, which is ruled by Mercury, 4 degrees midheaven in Gemini, which ruled by Mercury, and Mercury in 22 degrees Taurus, so very close to Uranus. This is a Jupiter day, so hail to Zeus and the god Thor of philosophy, but also worldview, religion, and the studies of what is right. Okay, so thinking about what is right. Jupiter itself is in Gemini, here in the 10th house, close to the midheaven. And this is the hour of Luna, moon, but the moon has just been fumbling with the vicinity to a planet called Fomalhaut. So I'm going to call on Fomalhaut for having the psychic wisdom to delve into what is not said and not seen by normal, scientific disclosure, and to have the correct way of saying this so that I can deliver this to you. Mars is still on the 22nd degree of Aries with Chiron, so the wounded healing and wounds around to kill and be killed, so all issues of murder, intentional killing that can arise at this time. Venus, the ruler of Mercury and Uranus, she's in Gemini, 8 degrees, in proximity to the Sun, which is already on Aldebaran, and that is a good chance to call to Aldebaran for having success with prevailing in situations, whether it's material or substantial, okay, be victorious with virtue, okay. Virtuous and victorious in delivering here the message, and for it to have good positive implications on the material well-being, okay, of me and other people. So the topic of discussion for today's water expands upon cooling is basically when we look into bringing to justice and bringing to truth situations of whether it's assassination or murder, to bring to justice the right person. And in this context, I'm going to discuss a study case, but I want to emphasize the structure that is making this study case basically a part of a large N cases, okay, part of a greater problem, and I may introduce some others. So let's talk about 3 juristic systems. One is juristic system in Israel. There are 2 cases. One is the Supreme Court revolution, where they wanted the court to have less say, because the or alternatively for the court to be representative, to be elected. Okay? And we understand that in democracy, when you talk about the jury and the juristic system, it is supposed to regulate the government, but is also not elected. And there we have situations of stagnation, where you have preservation of, let's say, from royal families, from the church, from the time for the church was even more intermixed with the state. And you see that at the place that is supposed to keep a democracy from stagnating, which is the Supreme Court, okay, to regulate the government from becoming tyrannical. So this is an inherent structural issue with the structure of the court system, okay. Another issue that is structural that I want to bring into this course is how you get the funding. So the way for you to study law, yes, you're supposed to go to first degree, and then you have the tests, okay, because it's a profession. We're going to do applied stuff, okay, it's not like being a philosopher. You're going to do, unless you do consultation, yes, but you're going to do applied stuff, and you have to be tested that you know what to do. And it's requiring a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of energy, and you need to be supported. Then, let's say after you became lawyer, it's first degree, second degree, if you became lawyer, you have to have apprenticeship, okay? And usually you work for another contour, for another office, okay? Until you can open your own office for you to be more independent. But usually people do with partners. And many, many branches. We are talking about things that people get killed over. So you would say it's criminal law, but also real estate. People can get killed over medical juristics. People can get killed over, okay, when there are financial interests getting into the mix, then it's life and death. Okay, so people get unalived. Entertainment, we saw, will definitely get killed over media and exposure. If you remember the Me Too. So one of the innovative things that were happening during the Me Too is the understanding that it's more important for the public to know the name of person who was serially offending people than for the procedure that juristics takes place in usually, and that paved the path for disclosure. And also is a different type of crime. Okay, for the crime, a person has to heal. It's happening to the sex chakra. A person has to heal the throat chakra. And I was a leading voice in both practicing speaking up and explaining this method for healing, how it interacts with the juristic system. The juristic must allow for people to heal in order to speak, in order to heal, and for the situations that are damaging to their ability to testify at court, because it damages basically your brain for a while. So to regain your ability of speech, to regain your memory, you need to practice this. And from an astrological point of view, I can say you need to practice this, and at such times publicly, if you feel called, because it involves with outer planets that connect personal planets, and the energy must go. It's not right into your diary. It's not even testifying in court. Even the court is too claustrophobic a space for the speech to go where it needs to go in order to actually heal and recover. And also, you don't want to go through litigation before you've had a certain type of healing, so that you can sift and sort through what was for my life, what was for their life, what am I litigating for, how much is their role, how much is the role of the structure. And so we saw that in freedom of speech versus defamation, people can absolutely get killed over, also in juristics. And so to get the funding for the studies, you either have to be a part of a certain type of a job that is not so legal, because you would need that much money, or for your family to have a lineage, then which is also not so legal, because we cannot, when we talk about the scales, we talk about the balance. If there is not balance of power, then the litigation process is also problematic. Okay, litigation is what is meant to do is to bring balance, not do oppression. Okay, we think about the scales. We think about the scales as not tipped over, as some people say. Oh, the scale is tipped over to the side of the winner in the litigation. No, it's not the game. But the scales are equal is when we have a good verdict where the scales are equal. But this is a philosophical question, and I've seen juristics, I've seen contours that are doing the opposite, but sometimes this can also be inversion on the law, and this is where religion gets in. We cannot separate the juristic studies from the context of religion. Okay, one of the things that I hear currently in Europe, where leaders say, "Oh, we don't want Sharia laws in our country," rightfully. Okay, in my opinion, yes, but What we don't understand is that the Mormons, for example, were taking minimal 3 women in order to go to the kingdom of heaven. So polygamy, starting with the Mormons, we know that Christianity was before Islam, and Islam just added 1 woman, 4. Okay, so you have to aspire to have 4 if you can support 4. And every woman needs her territory and so on, needs her space, needs her land, needs her bank account that you cannot touch. And this is also, we have to mention this also about Islam. But when we talk about the law, okay, we're talking about the Ottoman Empire was following the Christian, the Inquisition. Okay, so where did they get their laws from? For example, in Israel, we had Ottomanic law, then we had a British mandate, which used Ottomanic law, and then we had the laws. What would be the juristic system in Israel? Well, many things. If it works, you keep it. So we have laws from Ottoman Empire, we have laws from Inquisition. It's basically the a Christian law, which is the basic for the British law, and the mandate is for the law of Inquisition. And so when we talk about culture and we say what bad in the culture, what bad in this book, in that book, is polygamy was practiced, child bride was practiced, this was practiced with the Christians, and then actually for culturals we had the Jews and the Muslims were very close together in the Maghreb countries. And still, when I was in Netherlands, I was told by Jews, you can go to mosque, but please don't go to church, after I have been in church, of course. So, why? Because the cultures was very close. Okay, both had these child brides, and you see people coming from North Europe. The mother married at 12, at 14, at 13. And this is not on the basis of, a girl meets boy and they have some, fun together. Oh, this baby. And then the family is like, oh, there's youth pregnancy. But it's arranged marriage. It's by design for it to be this way. And they can kill the girl if she doesn't agree. Still happens in Bedouin tribes here in Israel. So when we talk about the law, there is Sharia law, the British mandate, Ottoman Empire, we need to understand what the origin or the context of this law is that is intermixed with the culture, and tend to the things as they arise. If we tend only to Sharia law, we still leave the Mormons in, we still leave child bride in, we still leave legalizing of pedophilia, which happened in Germany recently in the parliament, legalizing pedophilia. Okay, that's what the 2030 agenda is. It's not about you're having a shorter time for when you go to the groceries, 15-minute city, and it's comfortable to live in the city, right? For that reason, but it's also to do certain resets that if we don't reclaim as society, so this is my reset, my body, my rules, okay? Then they will decide what the reset is, which we want to understand when we understand law. And so we have the granting, and to get the grant to study, you either have to do some business that is not so legal, but what you do is you're part of secret society, and they they make it more accessible for you to study this or that, even if you're not of that lineage. But on the other hand, they have to extort you in some way, and then you already get into a situation where they have something on you, and that will dictate where you will go in law, where you can go in law, where you cannot go in law, what cases you can deal with and get away with that. And the alternative is you go into the studies, and then you have fraternities, sororities, and their respective horrid rituals that nobody can talk about. Yes, only because I'm TA of TA in Israel for politics and governance, that I knew that's if I want to study, which I will have to if I wanted to stay a researcher and stay in academia. Then I described in other episodes what would I encounter, had to prepare myself And this is because of these fraternities, these sororities. This is happening in those parties. People, a student cannot file this essay because they've been gang raped as part of this party, and you say, oh, maybe drink a cup of tea. That will help a person being with post-trauma for the rest of their lives now. In Ivy League, in the best universities, where the parents sell their body organs so that the child will have proper education, where Asians, a village funds the studies of a person to go to these universities. So you have to go to the right university to open the doors for you. And that already entails being, at least to some degree, involved in enabling of this secret society. And if from the very first pre-semester party, if let's say you're in the States, pre-semester party, you already had to partake, whether as perpetrator or as victim, in mass rape, and now you have to enable this, you joined the club, okay? And so now somebody comes to you with, let's say, a Me Too case or rape case. It's very difficult to help these people because that would put a preliminary, what we call inhibut takdim mishpati, okay? It's a never before seen case, something that paves the path for other type of litigation. And this litigation is people who were raped by your colleague, by the person who fixed you the job, and so on. And this is how we get even famous people in juristic not being able to do something about rape if the person lived. If the person died, then they could talk about this and say, oh, it's wrong that they were murdered. But if the person lived, they say it's evidence, okay? But we don't do something about the structure. And that makes it very difficult for me. I was very lucky that I didn't study law for certification, because, yes, I would not be able to. And even feminist lawyers, very famous feminist lawyers, where they had to get the grant to study, even when they came from well families, it was a barrier for them to deal with certain pedophilia cases that were by members of that cult that was associated with that fund where they got the money. So there was a conflict of interest, and literally saying they were afraid for their lives. This is another 22 afraid for murder, for being assassinated if they took on this case. And other pedophiles they could bring to justice, but not these pedophiles. So even when you have the most, let's say, feminist lawyers, men or women, okay, or children are hurt at similar rates across genders. And so even when you have the people that deal with that, then it's very difficult for them to do litigation and to do their job because of the entanglement with having people that for just to get the rank, just to be their decision or the juristics or as judge or as Supreme Court judge, they have to do certain rituals, torture of children on camera, so that when they want to get rid of them and replace the judge, it's no problem. You just expose the tape that you have pre-prepared, and the children at any case suffer. They will not get justice. They will not get rehabilitation. They will not get anything. And so, but you will say the public opinion will be like, oh my God, they did such a terrible thing, which they had to do in order to get to that point. And so, and keep doing, okay? And so, that is a situation where you say, okay, now you replaced it with another person who says that the other person wouldn't do the same thing, where structurally they have to do it, okay? They choose to do it, they're accountable, they this, they that. Yes, it's true, when Ronald Bernard was banker and he was reaching the rank where he had to do rituals of sexual abuse in children and torture of children, he said, he tried to kill himself, okay? And then he went through torture to get out of the cult, to be able to be whistleblowers, but just not say the names. This is why he's still alive. And this brings me to the next point. Of course, when you do something that, the type of law where people can die, And it's important for me to say it's not just criminal law. It's not just criminal law, okay? If you're doing real estate or dinei chozim, okay, contracts, people can die, but of course. If you're a verdict or you support someone, you will have to evacuate people and families. Yes, of course, somebody can kill you. They would even be correct, because they have to do whatever they can to make a change before they die. Yes, they would even be correct at attempting to assassinate you, because what you do this for is not for justice, and not for corporatism either. We blame capitalism and communism is pretty much the same system as corporatism. For capitalists, there are some people who enjoy more freedom. For others, no. Okay, and the means of production are located to China. That's why we have the BRICS coming up. Okay, the BRICS can threaten the dollar, no problem. Why they hold the means of production? United States doesn't have local produce. But if we had local produce, then would be another problem, which is labor rights, which is not a problem. There are solutions for all these things, but these solutions do not allow for controlling and oppressing people and dictating to where these people go. And when people hold a tremendous amount of wealth, unjustly, then they're dependent on oppressing other people, as they're not free. A free man does not have to oppress another person. A free woman does not have to oppress another person. A free person is a part of being free, that you don't have to invest energy in oppressing people for just running your life. You can just run free, roam free, okay? And so if you know for people that are doing, let's say, even consensual forms of power exchange, then you know when a person is dom, okay, dominant, then usually they rant about how much they have to take care for this for the sub. Because yes, the sub is take care of them, but the meaning of the relation is not to oppress the sub, but actually to kind of grow them, almost like initiation. They have to think all the time, it's like what would be good for them, what mission, what to give them, how to get them out of the power zone. Okay, there's a lot of energy invested into that. So they're not free. So people choose this for relation, and they live like that. And if it's consensual, it's okay. But when we talk about our system, it's not consensual. Yes, we do not consent. One of the greatest affirmations: I do not consent to the reset and so on. It's my reset, not your reset. It's sovereignty. And so it's important to understand that the risk of assassination is not just by criminal law, but wherever there is life or death. So it's medicine, it's real estate, it's freedom of speech versus defamation. Okay, if you were to silence the Me Too veteran that finally they broke the walls of speech, okay, and their life were in danger, you don't want to be in that position. You don't want them to know where you live. And they have every right to assassinate you, because otherwise they die. They will get sick, they will get cancer, they would get this, they would get that. So to kill those who come to kill you first. They have every right to do this. By John Locke, because you represent the regime, and this is the regime oppressing the people, the citizens. By John Locke, where the Declaration of Independence of the United States is written, inspired by, this is invoking the second. If you damage the first one, the freedom of speech, for them it's important to heal and to speak, and it's more important for them to live than the fear of defamation, especially when it actually happened, right? So what happens is try to violate the freedom of speech, the First Amendment, where they must invoke the second. But usually they can't. They don't want to kill. They don't want to this. Okay, that's the point. But I want you to understand that those issues of risk of assassination is not just criminal law. Very important, because otherwise we didn't get the topic for this episode. And so when you understand that, when you're a lawyer and you're entangled in a lot of things that are limiting your ability to do your job, and also there's a lot of money running through this. Yes, if you are doing a contract for a corporation that is buying so-and-so acres of land to build a 15-minute city on, you cut yourself quite a dividend. It's a lot of money. Okay? What you have to do to cut yourself this dividend you will spend the rest of your life trying to recover from, even when you were perpetrator. But this is what people don't get. Okay, like Ronald Bernard said in banking, he was looking forward to support his mother and then to do some business, and he was not good being an employed person. He was an entrepreneur, and his friends or the people he came into business with, they said, we can help you to make big money, but you must freeze your conscience, put it in below zero, 100 degrees Celsius. Okay, Fahrenheit would be even more freezing. So this is a part of what you had to do to be in this. If you're there for the money, if it's big money, then you have to freeze your consciousness. The opposite of defreeze. Or not, whatever. He will say what lapsus. So the thing is that you're going to be in life risk, whether it's because you're doing it for the money or because you want to do something good, okay? Like the feminist lawyer. She was assaulted as a child. She was incest by a father, actually. And she talks about this openly, and she wanted things to change, to bring into litigation these people. So she has to make sacrifices, because this knowing, like Stalin said, yes, they will die 100,000, but they will save millions, because this is what these leaders are told. This 200 million Russians died in the Second World War, so that was not working out so well. But it's also, you see that you litigate, you bring pedophiles to court, you have wins. So, but there's those pedophiles that you cannot bring, that are affiliated with the fund that gave you the money. And there is a grand kidnapping of children for this organ trade, for just to make money, okay? The kidnapping of Yemen children, so they sold some of them to American families. They're thinking that these children need help and they would provide for them. In the best of cases, though, some children will have parents that care for them, but were kidnapped, okay? And then they sold it to the families, and the families, they're like funding this, and they got dividends. It's child trafficking, yes? And there were, of course, way more cases of selling them to those rituals of pedophiles, and so on. And you know that you cannot do anything with that, but you will be able to tend to this crime. So whether you're there for your sense of justice or your sense of money, or both, because there's money involved there, yes? And they teach you in the secret societies that everything must be economical. You can, even if you want to do something good, it must be profitable. They teach you that, otherwise you don't get funding. So you have to make, and you think, oh, if we made this profitable, then we will be able to fund this good thing, and then good thing would happen in the world. But then, you know, at what makes this profitable is also, yes, a question. And so you have to be affiliated with people who protect you. So some of them, you say, from the cult, but from the cult, yes, they can protect you, they can support your new office, they can assist you for whether to get, and you need to be getting their words to get your certificate, to get your ability to work, to get your money running, and to not have defamation, because they already extorted you. But their trust is reliant on betrayal, so of course you cannot trust the people that you're working with. And one of the things that you're required to do is to be associated with people who will protect you. Now, you have to give them something in return. It's those people that can protect you outside of the cult, either are in the law enforcement, that you have to bribe them for them to do their job. Okay, for them to do their job, you have to bribe them. Yes? Otherwise, you're dependent on the people to help you, which they might not have the interest to, especially if your business, which you do advocacy for, is oppressing them and risking their lives. But even when it's doing justice, then they might not have the money to support you, or the time, because they have to go to work. They cannot make sure that you're not assassinated. But if we change the structure, if we change how people work, then we will have time to vouch for each other. If we understand that we need to vouch for people even when we don't agree with their political opinion or so on. That's part of freedom of speech. So, what other affiliations? Well, you have to give someone that has someone who give organized crime, and organized must only be organized if it is with the state. There's no such thing as organized crime. It's not with the state. It doesn't exist. Organized crime is organized because it is a part of organized society, which is the state. The state encompasses, okay, you cannot build a tent on your land. You bought the land, you cannot set a tent on your land without approval from the government that is ready for you to set this tent on your land. Yes? So to be organized crime, it must have either through offshore, there's somebody else, it's on their name, they're doing this business and doing legitimate business where you run, the money is laundered through it, or some similar, okay, for the murder people, and then they take the identity, and then these dead people, if nobody looks for them, become an offshore business. And we need to check how many business we have on people who died, on cold cases of murdered people. Very likely we have some. But it's not so available for you. And they say they cannot expose this file, they cannot expose that file, because that would bring in a Pandora box. And so for criminal organizations, you have to give them something in return. And so you understand if this person, let's say, was murdered, but from this criminal organization, you cannot litigate. So it limits a lot what you can do. And this structure is important to understand that even in the best of cases and with the best of intentions, either you wouldn't get a certificate or you would get assassinated before you ever did something good to society, or you have to bargain for what you can achieve. And this is how we get people not being able to litigate other people. And this is why there are such advanced laws, but when it comes to actually cashing in on that investment of your taxes that you pay for the juristic system, is why you run into a lot of trouble. Okay? And for the judge, they might not be themselves bad intentional, but it's limit for what they can do and when they can protect you and who can take a certain case and who cannot, and it's not just criminal law. Now I talked about this point where people can get murdered and then their identity is taken for those cult rituals or for trade, for monkey business. You have to have the Supreme Court, where's the highest, okay, when you do litigations, the process of litigation, so you have your local court or small litigations, then upper rank, then you have the Supreme Court. With cases like somebody's identity was stolen, and that used for like organized crime or something like that, the appeal, when you do an appeal, you get the verdict, you don't like the verdict, you do an appeal, then that would be involved in the Supreme Court. Okay, for example, when Julian Assange appealed, was granted the right to appeal, because you need the right to appeal, if you understand how much corruption goes into that, the right to appeal or the right to litigate. Yes, it's court system, but even if you have the money, or somebody to represent you, or you represent yourself, it's not always allowed to represent yourself, and so on. So when Julian Assange was granted the right to appeal against the extradition, where the British court says, the royal court says to the United States, we don't believe you that you're going to grant them grant Julian Assange the right to use the First Amendment as protection. The First Amendment exists. It's illegal to persecute Assange for, if there are other things, if there are other links, or I don't know, of something that is criminal that he did. There are other things, yes, but for journalism, nobody's allowed to litigate Julian Assange, even if he was doing it within America. Espionage Act is not suffice for us. If the information is correct, and he published the information, and the information was correct, then, and the most if information was not correct, was for defamation, which is not a million years in prison. Okay, we get a lawsuit, but it's not imprisonment because defamation. And he's funded by Rockefeller, so he could deal with that. So, but Rockefeller, they cut dividends for the church. And this is what we need to know. And so when he was appealing, granted the right to appeal against extradition, then this is involving the Royal Court of Britain, where it took place, and then the Supreme Court for the United States. Now you understand that to be in a Supreme Court position, it's a really big point of influence, and there are many things you have to do on camera that is not legal, so that they can get rid of you. When you're not doing what they want, they can get rid of you. And this is why, even when people are elected, we want our politicians, we want our elected people, we want our representatives to have education. Okay? They need money, funding for campaign. Anything you want, you need funding for campaign. If I wanted just for this channel, okay, to make it bigger, and I would need funding, and each one of you would have to, I don't know, give me $1, I would need 1 million of you to have $1 million. Essentially, what would you need $1 million? For army, for security, for to pay bribes so that they will do their job. Okay, for runaways where I need to go here or to go there, it's a lot of money, and $1 million not anywhere near enough. Or yen, I don't know what the BRICS coin is going to be, and I would probably need that coin, so I would be able to be, and would need to be eligible to use to trade in the coin that the BRICS are doing. Which means social credit score. But what I actually want to bring into awareness is the problem with social credit score. Okay? It's a money problem. It's a money problem. You need to fund this activism. And that's where people get unalived. So for Dutch whistleblower Sama, I don't remember the name, Samada or something, and he whistleblowed on Joris de Mink, who was back then the Supreme Court, pretty much the sole authority of the Supreme Court in Netherlands. Then he was going through psychological torture and oppression and whatnot. Forced medication of antipsychotics, really weird stuff. And when he was appealing for I think it was for the European Commission, on the same day where he brought like a big exposure to the case, which was July 15, 2021, there was another man who's been assassinated 9 days on the 6th July, not Juni, but the 6th July, 2021, Peter R. de Vries, which you heard a lot in this channel. And he was shot five times, yes, on July 6th, but he was hospitalized, and it was July 15 when they said he's no longer with us. Now, what was interesting for de Vries is that to do his misdaadgeslaver, his cold cases, addressing cold cases, He had to be connected with Supreme Court, and he was buddies with Juris de Mink, and he defended de Mink. So, and that was very interesting. When this thing arises, 9 days before, where the person shot 5 times, not dead, at hospital, not dead. That things on that same day, on July 15, where the Deming case is kind of being brought into like a deeper. This is from 1973, the Deming case. What was this Deming doing? Well, snuff film, which basically is the allegation snuff films, which basically means torturing children on camera. And so, and then it was the question, okay, it's like, was the freeze protecting a pedophile, on this, on that? But this, I want to address the structure here, because anybody that would want to do something like Mr. Geslafer, like water expendable cooling, okay, like tending to cold cases, I want you to understand what you're getting into. I want you to understand the structure of things, of what you can expect, and let's talk about the structure and to change the structure, because otherwise we are all the freeze. Okay? And the structure goes very, very simply. Could somebody, a journalist, crime journalist, however famous, however well known, say, hey, this guy at the Supreme Court, that's a criminal? Could he? And stay alive? Even when he was standing to other case, okay, was by state witnessed against the Marengo process of crime families. Some of them were affiliated with the Cantor for his child. Because again, you have to mingle with these criminal organizations to not be unalived, so that you can get some justice done. You have to bargain for the justice that you can make. And this is how, it's very easy when you see the Telegraph, oh, this Cantor leaked so-and-so. Yes, it's very easy. It's the practice of what they do. But we also need a structure that would allow a person to run a lawyer's office, or to be litigant, or to be journalist, or to be banker, or to be a leader, without mingling with those very things that it's not that they would later bring to the downfall. Of course they would bring to the downfall, but where is the position where you can do this job without being either assassinated or having to mingle and give character testimony for people on a person that just by without knowing who is Juris de Mink, okay? It's just if I said Supreme Court, just if I said Supreme Court leader, Supreme Court, the person ahead of Supreme Court, we know that he must be corrupt, because that's the structure. That doesn't end here, because what Supreme Court can do is, in the process where they film these snuff films, people get killed. They die. So what? Let's say there is a cold case or murder case. Then, if one of the people that could know something about what you do in a Supreme Court is accused of murder, which was the case of Baby Sin, then whether they do it, they didn't do it, you have the interest that they will be in jail. So no one would believe them, so that they wouldn't speak. But nobody tends to the conflict of interest. It is structural. You have one person sitting in the Supreme Court. Okay, one person's. And if you think it's a Netherlands problem, no, it is the structure of Supreme Court all across, from Europe to USA to Asia to Africa. It's not a culture issue, it's a structure issue. And it's a monetary issue, because all of these together for all the wealth families, they have to cut money, not for the Ayatollahs, not for Sharia law, for the church. And this is nothing about Christianity. You can be Christian, you can believe in Christ, Christ consciousness. It's nothing to do with that. This is where money changes hands, and the structure that is church. Okay, not the religion that is Christianity, the structure that is church. And this is very important. What is the wealth of the church? We don't know. But if the wealthiest, if the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers cut dividends for the church, and you cannot be funded, whether it's a campaign, whether it's your grant, by anything that does not go through these wealth families, not only Jews, but why Jews? Because in Christianity, you cannot do accountants. And for Inquisition, Jews had to either escape Inquisition, become Christians if they could, or to do the accountants, where it is the Gentile of the Christians, that would be the Jew. For like when the Jew needs to turn on the light in Shabbat, then they ask for a Gentile to do it. They cannot ask for a Jew, which is funny, but it's harmless. But when it's accountants and offshore business and money laundering, and what Ronald Bernard rightfully called top criminal, then they ask the Jews. And for the Jews, it's Inquisition, or you do this. And then everybody would, of course, hate. They follow the money, yes, but you don't know that there's another edge to the money. What you didn't follow is when those families, they cut dividends to the church. Okay, that's the elders of Zion. It's Rockefellers cutting dividends to the church. We haven't changed since Inquisition. And so you see that although it's democracy, you can be gay in some places and still get away alive with that. There are many things that are not like, Spain. But when it comes to the money time, you have to comply. And this is how we get gay right-wing leaders like Pim Fortuyn assassinated, or having or secular people that are wanting secularism, having to put traditional family values in their political party, which has the word freedom in it. In Netherlands, all the parties have freedom in it. You don't know which freedom. So which freedom do you want? Okay, so you elect between freedoms, and so this is for Israel, for example. We have only one party with the name freedom. For Netherlands, all of them with the name freedom. Where a right-wing person has to put traditional family values, where they may have, they don't necessarily practice that, and so because I don't know what was said by the person themselves, that I'm not going to elaborate about this. But yes, this is Netherlands. Okay, it's the right for you to be who you are, but they still have to put these traditional family values in their party, because they have to comply with the update that funds them, that has in their community, the funders, not the leader, that has in their community exactly the things that they go against with Sharia law, which is child rights and infanticide and honor killings and so on. So this is something we are all dealing with. And when it comes to doing water expensable cooling, or to tending to cold cases, or to assassination prevention, it's important for us to understand structures. It's important for us to speak it out aloud, so that we can put less fingers of blame and more discourse, and understand that for us to talk about accountability, we really need to allow for structure, to allow for making good decisions in life. So we take the framework of who is to blame and who is accountable, and we bring in a question of, could this person that we hold accountable, and rightfully so because they did horrible things, could this person be where they are without doing these things? And what position would they be? They would be of the marginalized, of the underdog, which we need to understand. So no crime will be solved, so nothing would be tended to. Okay? We are now living in a world where there are a lot of it looks like a lot of conflict, but all this conflict is funded through the money goes from the right pocket of the left pocket of the same pants, and that's what's funding these cows, which makes money launder, which makes money moves, and which creates rejuvenation in the pocket. That's basically what it does. And genocide, ritual sacrifice, rapes, child trade, organ trading of infants, horrid, and even the food, okay, what we eat. Yes, it's not a problem if you're vegan, if you're not vegan. It's how was your crops growing? The cucumber that you eat, the tomato that you eat, it's not even about organic, not organic. The workers, the agriculture. How many people were raped there? How many people sexually harassed? How many people murdered there? It's your food, it goes into it's the energy we put in our body, right? Even if you're vegan. Yes, if you can have cows walking around, and like shaman, the slaughter is respectful, is still an animal that dies, if something dies so that you can live, but it's not the same as crunched up like sardines animals one by one with all the inflammation and all the hormones that they give them, and then we eat it. This is our food. Okay? And this is also about to kill and be killed. Okay, for nourishment. So this episode is, yes, highly complicated. And what I want to do with here is not to bring you down and say, oh, nothing can be solved, nothing can be this. No, we are in a times where Pluto is about to go into Capricorn and finish up with the pyramid structure while it is applying to trine Sedna. So between September and November 19, I think the beginning, mid-September, September 18, I think, and November 19, we're going to have Pluto in Capricorn for the last time in the next 240 to 150 years. What has Pluto been doing in Capricorn? Well, it started in 2008, so the subprime. Changing of the monetary system, but also looking at debt differently. Doesn't mean that everything's going to be jolly, but it's also going to be the fall of a lot of structures. So when I say get out of the lodges before November 19, I don't say this because I'm against you, or because I'm trying to bash someone, or because I'm fear-mongering, but because we know historically that when Pluto was in Aquarius, anybody who was affiliated with these cults were persecuted. And something you're not, granted that you're not the Supreme Court judge, that you're not, the most famous person in your country, that you're not born into a lineage. You're the common person that just needed to get a bit of a job and make sure that the children have some money. So you went to whomever you have to network with, and they were with the cult. Maybe they liked you, they arranged for you, call this networking. Yes, but they say, oh, you put this symbolism here and that symbolism there, and it catches up. Okay? Get out of the lodges before November 19, if you can, or at least denounce this. Okay, bring in some awareness into that, and this is something we must do, because these structures are collapsing rightfully. The structures are collapsing, these things are exposed rightfully. It goes all the way deep down the rabbit hole for a reason. The many times that people warned us, okay, around the murder of JF Kennedy, around Julian Assange, before COVID, during the wars right now that we have, that there are people that have desire to, again, enslave humanity, much like Inquisition. And the astrologers, okay, Dan Waite's talking about it. This is the time with Pluto Aquarius that there was the Spanish Inquisition as well. So we really need to lend an ear, and we really need to understand that it's not all fear mongering, that those plans exist, but also, yes, free people don't oppress people, and it takes tremendous amount of energy to oppress people. Okay, this is a point of interference. It takes tremendous amount of energy to keep people oppressed. You get tired of this. People get tired of this. A lot of energy is invested to keep them in this way. So a lot is going for you to survive. More than you know, it's going for you to not just survive, but to thrive. There's a lot going for you. For when you know these things, you have more points of where to change. Also, psychologically, you're not that swayed by where you say, oh, this was accused in this was accused in that. You know the structure, you know that that's going to happen. So they have the black music industry. Everybody going down, and then Jaguar Wright speaks. Then she wears this thing on her. What's this thing on her head? Why? She had to go in another place because she had to speak about disco. Otherwise, she would die. Okay, she had to get it out of her system. She's been speaking for years, and she's speaking the truth. But then suddenly there's this thing on her head. What's this thing on her head? Was it some funding she had to get, or even some psychological support was coming from somebody of those religions or those tribes where they put something on their head to cover the head? Why does she need to cover? There's something wrong with her head. She's beautiful hair, beautiful woman. Why does she need to cover herself up? No. It's not about modesty. Your head is not immodest. Your hair is not immodest. Okay? Was it the style, just the hat? I don't know. But sometimes it's to do with the funding. Who funds? Also whistleblowers. And so, which doesn't take away from the truth that they do tell. And so, you have this, black music, Jay-Z and Beyonce are they, and, you know, things being exposed. When you listen to the songs, they're literally they're literally talking about this. Okay? They're literally saying that. There's this song, what's this song? You know, it's like you can only be sexy if you make money changes hands whenever you strut your stuff. Yes, what about just wanting to be comfortable in sensuality? Which is healthier for, like, you know, not getting yeasty or sperm count. So this, yes, for the actual holistic medicine. And this from the people that make the most money in the industry. Yes, but my girl looks like this. My girl, what's your girl? Who are your girls? Were you human trafficking? Were you a madam? What's your girls? So this is famous, and then you get, the Supreme Court. Of course, the Supreme Court. And you get all these politicians. Of course, all these politicians. Then you get the lawyers of the whistleblowers. Why? Because they met with the celebrities. Okay, so then again. And then it's kind of like it all falls down. And that can really be difficult on the psyche. Because, you know, if the Me Too was, this is your spouse, your brother, your colleague, your boss, your friend, and sometimes people that were good to you and also did this. Now it's not, oh, it's the Nazis or the Zionists. So you noticed how much Zionists the Nazis is kind of like they give it a name this, they name that. It's not the entire truth, yes? It's entire society, the tribal society. Inuit has highest rates of suicide because of incest. This is me listening to Inuit people, raising awareness in front of Inuit people as a part of Sedna reverence practice that I do for Sedna. This is how I discovered this. And learning about what happened with Bedouin tribes. Okay, all this information is coming to me because I do reverence to Sedna from astrological point of view. So I dedicate time to learn about Inuit. And I see that incest, what they're legalizing in Germany right now, is to have sex with children, would cause the highest suicide rates like was in Inuit society. And the Inuits are fighting against this, but also said that Gemini is trying in Pluto, creating a gate to change these structures from the Inuit. So it's not the same Pluto that we had 250 years ago. It's not the French Revolution. And it's not the same transit exactly as the Inquisition because we have Sedna. And Sedna requires for deeper respect. A 1200-year cycle, which we cannot comprehend because none of us have been, we're not alive. We've not been alive for Pluto transit, but we know the Declaration of Independence. Some papers survived from there. But when we talk about 1200 years ago, we don't even have the ability to see the things in the context of what they were. We were not the same humanity. And we're going through changes as humanity right now. So it's also important to see what doors, okay, for 9 millennia, for 12 millennia change to occur right now is something we really have never before seen. This is why it's so important to reclaim, reset. What is your reset? What are you resetting? What would you like to reset in the world? Because it's not just about staying in what was, it's moving with the time. And it's not also about trying to resist change because it's going forward, but understanding that you reclaim that forward. It's not the forward that the government says or that the Vatican says or that the Zionists say or that the Rockefeller says or that the leader says. It's what you say. And for as much as we can do. I think I also want to thank for the making of this episode. It relied on information, yes, as always, by Nicola Stojanovic. It's the 22nd degree and the degree theory of Nicola Stojanovic. Deceased Nicola Stojanovic, by the way, he died from COVID suddenly. Yes, if you take a look at the chart of the WHO, have at least 3-4 planets, some of them outer planets, for 22nd degree. To kill and be killed, in this case, outer planet, slower moving, mass killing. So was it case for him and COVID? He had, I think, 18 degrees in his chart, which is poison. Right now we have vertex and the Saturn on 18 degrees. The vertex Capricorn, Saturn Pisces. Of course, for the work of the whistleblower. I cannot show you this because the word I seek to do this, I don't want to put it outside because it's not related. I was looking to know if somebody knows about the link, and I don't want to put his name because he didn't know that we don't have anything that he talks about this, and that would just put him in this mix that they had enough troubles on the head. So. Or contracts. This is Samada, and you look for Juristem Inc. If you look whistleblower Juristem Inc., perhaps this would be good. I just don't want to pop up right now on the screen. And then from him, I know that when he applied for, I think it was the EU or UN. As of this case, because he was silenced and oppressed and tortured himself, just because he spoke up. and became a stateless person, this Dutch person became a stateless person, then it was the 15th of July 2021, it's the same date that Peter R. de Vries, which is another person I'm paying reverence to, that pretty much has inspired this series, okay? For he did cold cases, and then there's the children, Kelly and Royce, that continue this, which is the Peter R. de Vries Foundation, mainly Kelly. And he tended to cold cases, even famous ones. When I discovered the 22nd degree for my chart, and when Uranus was on the 22nd degree, I began to do water expands upon cooling, which is taking on from this, but talking about the wider, the things that de Vries did not get to speak about. He did mention the WHO. Unfortunately, it was in the context of defending the mink. And I think that WHO was not against the mink. They were just replacing their personnel, and the mink was one of their personnel. So we wouldn't have WHO. It's not like, oh, he didn't comply with the WHO. Maybe this case, I don't know. But that is, but the mink was not assassinated. De Vries was. So I guess we know now who's with who and who's not with who, because he's no longer here. So great reference to de Vries himself and the Vries family. And I want to take a woman journalist that helped bring in the baby scene. So anybody that was involved with the baby scene, and again, I don't want to put names on charts here, because I don't know what would it mean like for this person. But it was a woman journalist, and she brought in the case for baby scene, and also Samara, which addressed first of all, the corruption, that we couldn't address the mink case structurally. He made it impossible to address anything, allegations against him when he was in service. And of course, when there were certain people accused of crime, of murder, and put in jail, that may or may not have been the correct people, and there was conflict of interest in the procedures, even for the terms of procedural justice. I think is correct to say that conflict of interest is good enough reasoning for procedural justice to be an argument point in here, for we don't want the wrong people to sit on murder cases, and that's big enough. Yes, as well, the Israeli lawyer that brought into my attention the honor killings that are done in Bedouin tribes, and her not client that talked about the risk of assassination, that leaked basically this information. And this is the mother of 2 children that were kidnapped to pedophilia by her ex-husband, who was in the Gur Hasidic community, but also part of a Waxman fund, which was involved with enabling pedophilia. So, and also giving grants to the lawyer, that's why I don't mention the name, this big feminist lawyer, but I cannot, don't want to bring this type of attention to her. So that's the part of the making of this episode. And it was inspired by yesterday finding out that the date for Peter R. de Vries was 9 days after he was basically shot. The date that said that he's dead, is no longer with us. It's the same date for Samada appealing or getting an answer from the EU. And right on this same day, the man that he tried to look for help from, that perhaps could expose the mink or say, oh, fuck it, I don't defend this guy anymore. And he was not kept alive. So yes, there's Taghi, and there's Marengo, and there's the Nabil, but there's also the Supreme Court, and we have allegations against the person who outlived the journalist that defended him, that was shot 9 days before the announcement of his death. So 9 days was kept in a Schrödinger cat position, which was very strange to me. First of all, I didn't. It reminded me of 50 Cent, where it like took so many bullets and is still standing. Maybe the fist could be still standing. I don't know. Like, we don't know. And of course, I'm not going to. Yes, please. If not the family, it's not like, please. It's not. I don't want to bring up triggers to people, but I do want to talk about this as a study case for that is discussed for what is not discussed, and it's not just Netherlands, it's everywhere. Netherlands is not more or less corrupt than any country, including Palestine. And I can say that as I've been doing apprenticeship during my degree in the Israeli-Palestinian Chamber of Commerce, which means that as per money, there was a Palestinian state, there is a Palestinian state as per money, because there is an Israeli-Palestinian Chamber of Commerce, which couldn't have been if Palestine was not a territory that's been defined by some sort of mean. So why not two-state solution? Why not peace? Why not structure if they deal with each other? And we often say, when we talk about business, then there is often the belief that business can make world peace. And I think what I learned in the last couple of years, but especially in the last year, is that you could have business, but doesn't mean you're going to have peace. Because if your business is war, then you have to have war. And this is why we sort of don't have Palestinian state, but we actually, for terms of trade, we do. And I want you to know that there is, yes, I think they are next to was done, Malone Dan in Jaffa, Tel Aviv. Yes, there is the Israeli-Palestinian Chamber of Commerce, okay, right around the market there. So it exists. And the head of it was an ex-Mossad person. So it exists. We trade with Palestine. So who do we trade with? What entity we trade with? Yes, and if there is Palestine, why are we fighting? If there's a country, why are we fighting? What's going on? Who do we trade with? Yes, there is a Palestine. So is it an offshore business? Like what is going on here? But for terms of trade, for terms of business, there is an entity. But when a business is made by warfare, or maybe Palestine is so invested in war that people are in this situation because it brings the money. I don't know, but it doesn't reach the people. And so, unfortunately, business has its limitation. For the corruption in business does not allow for peace. And so that's a tough lesson I had to learn. But it's important for us to know, okay? Israel does not acknowledge the country that it trades with. What are we having conversation when there is trade? So who are we trading with? Yes. And this is not a top secret. It's not a state secret. It's a building. You can see it. It's the Israeli-Palestinian Chamber of Commerce. It's very small internship there, but because of the culture of like that also women were okay with some sex jokes with some cities, and for me it made me trauma. So I just didn't take my money, just walked out. But that was the issue. Okay, it was not another issue. It was just like. It was not even completely Me Too things, because it was a political culture, organizational culture that were triggering to me to be at. That's it. And a lesson for me, an intergenerational view of the discourse. Yes, perhaps you would find this interesting. And how all of these things seem to play, because I also want us to get the correct appraisal for the people that doing this, for the people that tend to these things, for the people that risk their lives and risk their skin and stand in constant assassination danger because they tended to some cold case that nobody else tended to, and they're not saints. the people. And I want us to begin to be able to hold that and ask ourselves, how do we create a structure that allows for us to do this without being so mingled with corruption that it almost feels like a pyrrhus winning. And Aldebaran is associated sometimes with the pyrrhus winning, and the pyrrhus winning means that you have won, but the price you paid for so much that it feels like you have lost. But for Aldebaran, we can also win a win that's not a pyrrhus winning. And at least to tend to that. What I say is at least tend to that. And I'm recovering from CPTSD, which means that sometimes you may hear me speak. I know a lot about the law, intelligent person, but when it comes to like my daily life, or when I have to keep the floor clean, or keep making myself food, or this as almost dysfunctional, and sometimes is because what I'm processing. Other than that, I think we need to find a way of living that is different. Yes, I don't have the robot that does this or the cleaner that does that. I'm a one-person empire on welfare money. So I'm also funded probably by these Rockefellers and Rothschilds that cut dividends to the church. So if we want to talk about transparency about funding, so I'm receiving welfare, live in state of Israel. And it's because my checks went bad and I had a mental crisis. Nobody cared that I have mental crisis, but it's because my checks went bad. They said, oh, we write your cuckoo and then you take these pills. And I tried, maybe there's a magic pill that can make it work. It's not. It's slow mo execution. And when I was no longer willing to be advocate, no longer, as I didn't know that that was expected of me, but when I was not doing what I was expected, I was left with no food, no support, no housing, and they took away my right to have like a rehabilitation, which now it's like okay, but back then it was very, very difficult. The only thing is like the welfare basically allows me to live, and that's pretty much the transparency around my resources. So what funds this program is very, as you can see, okay, not fancy camera work, not fancy, like I have to clean the house in a way that would be good for camera. Okay, I have to be in a good hair day. So you know, and I'm transparent about this because I want you to understand what allows me to speak. And then there is the shadow band that I cannot forcefully fight against because I don't have the army and the security. And we would need to change our life to such a way that we can vouch for each other if when we disagree. But I do want to pay this contribution and to tend to these things. And I'm very grateful for you, my viewers. And every time I see that people stick around and hear when I do so many things, not niching down, and I love this, and I really, really appreciate you. I know some of you maybe cannot leave a comment, maybe don't want to expose, maybe you're in some situation where you cannot have a timestamp of you on the internet. That's okay. I'm appreciative, yes, of your presence, of your followers, of the views, and really, if we have one takeaway from this episode is for you to understand that if we only tend to things, you are creating already a change. You're allowing and inviting solutions. You're manifesting something different. And a change is something we do. The more love we have for what we do, for passion in life, the more we are able to tend to things and to have things surfacing from a perspective that is of love and wants to create a place where is more love, more well-being for all of us, basically. So yes, I hope this was useful. I'll see you in my next episode. So this was Water Expands Upon Cooling, episode 4, something that was only a dream, and episode 7, something was only a dream. And I thought I would never dare to do that, and that, and that, and the person that inspired this, and they're dead, they're assassinated, waking sleeping bears, and da 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 da. But we are already in episode 7, and informations keep coming, and things keep progressing, and understandings keep evolving. And we're setting the framework. If we understand that the context for some cold cases, some of your loved ones, some of the people you know, are not this war or that criminal organization even, or this solist person who decided to do something bad, for sometimes a larger, grand structure that is at the point of changing, and we are part of this time for these changing things. Then perhaps it can give you this validation that you seek that you wouldn't find when the case remains cold case. Or you ask, why is it cold case? Did people forgot about it? Is no. The more time passes, we understand more, and we can tend to it actually more, not less. So water expands upon cooling. So property of water was inspiring this, the name for this series. And no cold case, no case is closed case, no case is cold case, including if you lost your loved one, and nobody not forgotten about you. So thank you for watching.